The Bodyguard, the Nate Thrower Series, Book 1. Written by Mike Ryan. Narrated by Brian Hutchison. Chapter 1. Thrower walked slowly over to the bed and plopped down on it. It was a nice bed, the nicest one he'd seen in over a week. Thrower figured he'd earned it after what he'd been through over the past week. He didn't usually care about staying in expensive and luxurious hotels, but considering he'd been sleeping on floors and old cots on his latest job, he thought it was time to splurge a little. Protecting people was what Thrower did best. His nickname was the Bodyguard. For some, that was all they knew him by, especially the people that he went up against. He was a big man, with a military background and well adept at fighting. He had to be, considering he was usually brought into situations that were not in his favor. But that was his specialty, winning in spite of the odds. The clients who hired him usually had unique or extreme circumstances for doing so. He wasn't brought on board just to stand around looking tough when someone could hire a team of 4 others to do the same thing. No. Thrower was brought in when there was an extreme likelihood of violence. Thrower was looking up at the ceiling and just barely closed his eyes when there was a knock on the door. He opened his eyes and lifted his head, looking over at the door. He then quickly sat up and got into defensive mode. He wasn't expecting anyone, since his job was finished earlier in the day. He didn't call for room service, and he had no friends in the area that he was aware of. He got off the bed and started walking toward the door, putting his hand on his waist to feel the gun that was attached to his leg. Maybe there was some unfinished business from his last job. Thrower stood next to the door, making sure he wasn't in the way of any bullets that may pierce through it. He'd seen that movie before. He wasn't going to look through peepholes, and he wasn't going to say anything, not while standing directly behind a door. There were 3 more knocks on the door. "Yes?" Thrower finally said. "Nate Thrower?" Thrower was silent for a moment, trying to quickly think of a name to match the man's voice. It wasn't one he recognized. "Depends on who's asking." "My name is Carlos Espinoza. I have a business proposition for you. I understand you're for hire." "Depends on the job." "That is what I would like to talk to you about." Thrower analyzed the man's voice. When you were thrust into the situations that he'd been in, and to be the one walking out on top, you had to pick up on things like that. Sometimes it was the little details that were the difference between life and death.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?